Good afternoon. C News is live at noon. I'm Mahalia Joseph.
And I'm Nasira Mohammed with sports.
Topping the news at this time, the OWTU has been holding a press conference outside the Ministry of Finance's office this morning, where President General Ansel Roger has once again issued the threat to shut down Petrotrin if there is no agreement on the table. On Tuesday, Petrotrin said it had reached an agreement on a number of articles with the OWTU. Conciliatory talks began on Monday with the company and the Ministry of Labor in San Fernando. The company said the parties signed a memorandum of understanding covering areas agreed to as well as those items agreed to be deferred for further discussion. Both parties are set to meet again on Thursday at 4 p.m. to resume discussions. The OWTU President General Ansel Roger had fired a warning ahead of the Monday meeting that if talks failed to address the 6 collective agreements for the period 2014 to 2018, they were prepared to shut the company down. And our reporter Janine Brown is there and sent us this report a few minutes ago.
Good afternoon, and of course good afternoon to our viewers. Now I am downtown Port of Spain, where we met a short while ago with OWTU President Ansel Roger. Now Mr. Roger is again reiterating the union's call for government to honor wage negotiations for employees at Petrotrin, and of course they're threatening a total shutdown at Petrotrin if these negotiations are not honored. Now an interesting comment Mr. Roger made this morning is that if this government chooses to follow the trend of the previous administration, which he described as victimizing the union and their members because of the unions speaking out on issues of corruption and nepotism by government officials, he is saying this is something the union will not accept, and they stand to do everything that's necessary to protect their members. Now I understand that the union is expected to meet with the Ministry of Labor and Small Enterprises on the issue tomorrow, that's Thursday, December 22nd, and we can expect more coming out of that meeting. I am Janine Brown reporting for C News Live.
And speaking on Good Morning Trinidad this morning, Pastor Clive Doughton made a special call to Ansel Roger over the threats of shutting down the country through strike action.
I want to make a call this morning that we will just temper our rhetoric somehow. This is not an easy situation economically for any government. If the UNC were in charge or the COP were in charge, and now we have the government in charge, they'd have to take some of the same grammarzonic decisions, in terms of the economy.
To some other news now, thieves have taken $58,000 worth of computer equipment from the lab at the Pleasantville Secondary School. According to Monrepo Police, the burglar proofing of the room was cut and window removed. The building was secured on December 19th, with the theft discovered the next day. Security arrangements have been increased at the Golden Grove Prison in Arouca, where the man accused of murdering Shannon Banfield was remanded into custody on Tuesday afternoon. That's according to a daily newspaper report this morning, which said no chances were being taken around Dale Cicheran's safety and that he'll be kept separate from the other inmates since there are fears he may be harmed by other prisoners. Cicheran was arrested late on Monday night and charged with a bank employee's murder on Tuesday before appearing in court. However, speaking to C News Live on condition of anonymity, a senior officer said the move isn't a special treatment but ensuring the safety of the prisoner. The government has taken a proactive approach to the influenza virus with the implementation of the influenza immunization drive. This from Minister of Health Terence Yalsing. Speaking at the St. James Health Facility on Wednesday morning, he said 100,000 doses of the vaccine have been purchased and the drive will be going on the road as the ministry aims to target at-risk persons.
A special group we are targeting this morning is the diabetics, because we had 2 people dying of flu last year who were diabetics. To that end, I have the Diabetic Association represented by Mr. Primraj Budram and his colleagues here, because we want to make sure we vaccinate as many diabetics as possible.
The health minister urged the citizens to be proactive and visit their district health facilities for the vaccine as soon as possible.
Here, when there were deaths reported in the media, and then you had an upsurge in people seeking out the vaccines. Let's be proactive this year and voluntarily come for the vaccines. Don't wait until you hear the media or the Minister of Health saying somebody has died due to flu. The vaccines are available free. We are making it easy to get the vaccines.
Minister Dayal Singh noted that the strain of the virus which is presently making the rounds in Trinidad and Tobago is more aggressive than those in times past. At-risk groups include those 2 years old and below and 65 years old and above. Pregnant women and chronic disease patients are also on the list. And you're watching the C News Report at noon. Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest news on our website at ctvtt.com, or you can check out our Facebook and Twitter pages at C News Live. The lawyer acting for Dale Petrotrin is asking the state to hand over his DNA fingerprints and CCTV connected to the case. Mr. Petrotrin was charged on Tuesday with the bank worker's murder and appeared in court in the afternoon. His lawyer, Larry Williams, made the submission during the accused's appearance on December 5th, and the 20-year-old Republic Bank clerk went missing in Port of Spain after leaving work. On December 9th, her body was found in a storeroom of IAM and Company at Charlotte Street in Port of Spain. Mr. Petrotrin had been remanded into custody and will reappear in court on January 17th. 9 months in prison. That's the sentence handed down to a security guard who molested a 13-year-old girl at a fast food outlet and only stopped when she began screaming. 26-year-old Ashumba Francois from Pleasantville entered a guilty plea to the charge. The magistrate presiding in the case called Francois' action disgusting. The court heard the incident took place at KFC in San Fernando, where the guard walked up to the teenager and touched her inappropriately. The man was arrested after the girl raised the alarm, and a passing police car pursued and arrested Mr. Francois. 3 men lost at sea since Monday morning have been reunited with their families after being rescued by the Coast Guard and Air Guard. Othniel Ramsey, Anderson Smart, and Christian Mitchell left Tobago to go fishing. However, their boat began experiencing mechanical problems and began drifting. The men were reported missing after failing to return home. They were spotted from the air and rescued by crewmen on the TTTS Brighton. Calls are being made to the National Security Minister to denounce the statement made by PCA Chairman David West, in which he called the TTPS the biggest gang in the country. That from the recently elected PSWA President Michael Seals. He found it incorrect that with 3 ministers in the ministry, not one had defended the police service against the comments. The Police Social and Welfare Association had rejected an apology from Mr. West, saying the damage was already done, but what he'd said. And the National Trade Union Center is also calling for the immediate resignation of David West, Director of the Police Complaints Authority. It said after having reviewed the statements and given deep consideration to the effect of these statements, NATOC is strongly condemning the views as expressed by Mr. West. It said the statements were irresponsible, inflammatory, and defeatist. Speaking with Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago this morning, Pastor Clive Doughton said he would like to see a peaceful resolution to the growing hostility.
I would ask the Police Service Association to practice forgiveness at this time. It is your democratic right. You don't want him there. You have lost confidence in him for his misspeaking, in quotation marks, and therefore you have sent a letter off to Mr. Carmona. I would suggest perhaps as president he'd want to meet with both parties, in an effort to resolve this.
Pastor Doughton also said the feeling of calling for step down when they're made an error has to be eradicated from society, since important institutions have a responsibility to set an example to young people.
The rhetoric is too volatile. Let me shift from that. So I am calling for a draw match here. I am calling, I know the president will meet with both parties. I am suggesting that the Police Service Association could meet with Mr. West also. You have long distance, sending messages from, almost by remote control to solve a problem. But when you meet in the same room and you thrash out the issues,
1 in every 5 nationals reside outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and 79% of tertiary educated students immigrate. These are the findings of the World Bank report on migration remittances. President of the University of the West Indies Guild of Students, Mackenzie Peters, and National Scholarship recipient, Keston Perry, finds this troubling but not surprising. They say measures should be put in place to address what is, in essence, Trinidad and Tobago's brain drain. Dion Batiste has more.
Will I be able to get a sustainable job once I've completed my degree? According to UB Guild President Mackenzie Peters, this is a frequently asked question among university students.
The reality is, when they leave that the University of the West Indies or any university, it's very hard to get jobs. It's extremely difficult. And I could stress on one medical student who said to me, she completed her degree about 2 years ago, and she's still struggling to get an internship. And as a result of that, she'll have to go to the States or Canada, which is, they are accepting her, but the problem is the government is not willing to fund or even give any contribution. And if that student is to go to the United States or Canada, the government is then asking that student to pay back.
Mr. Peters says the necessary provisions aren't being made for the development of students, allowing them to practice what they've learned once they've graduated. This, he says, forces them to seek employment opportunities beyond our shores. National Scholarship recipient Keston Perry says persons decide to move abroad for a number of reasons. Chief among them, he says, is economic opportunities.
The structure of Trinidad and Tobago's economy is such that most of our people actually are employed in what is called the informal sector of the economy. Then we have a group of people who are employed by government, majority of which people are employed by government. So we have a situation in which where the structure of the economy over the past 50 years or so has become more concentrated in the energy sector, which only employs about 5% of the population.
In response to government's claims that persons are not fulfilling their obligations under the GATE program, Mr. Perry said in many instances it's because Trinidad and Tobago just does not afford them the opportunity to do so. Dion Batiste, C News.
And we're from Roger straight to Nasira, who is looking so lovely in her red this morning and has a lot to tell us in what's happening in the world of sport. Nasira, take it away.
Time to officially get into the festive spirit. And the Trinidad and Tobago Cricket Board held a press conference yesterday to address reports of allegations of improper conduct by a TNT under-19 team official towards a player. On receiving the complaints in a formal letter from the manager of the team, the TTCB immediately removed the team official in question from all duties, and a two-member committee consisting of TTCB President Asim Basarat and Second Vice President Lalwan Kaulesa conducted a preliminary inquiry where one step was to interview the player in the presence of his mother.
One of sexual abuse, as is being reported by the media and other factions within the cricketing fraternity. The team official was interviewed, and he indicated that he needed to seek legal advice with respect to the matter, and he subsequently communicated with the committee through his attorney at law denying the allegations.
The committee then sought legal advice, and it was determined that the matter must be further examined by the TTCB's National Disciplinary Committee. The TTCB is hoping to have a speedy resolution and recommendation on this scenario.
It is our intention to make available to the parties the opportunities to seek counseling and advice pending the outcome of the investigation.
And that was the sport for today.
And that's how we end the C News report at noon. I'm Mahalia Joseph.
And I'm Nasira Mohammed. And Mahalia, I'd like to wish you and Trinidad and Tobago a happy holidays and a happy New Year. This is my last noon newscast because I'm on vacation from tomorrow. So I'll see you all in 2017. Be safe.